got to worry about any politician that doesn't want to get recorded. Okay, folks, I'm Bill Brand. I'm the mayor of Redondo Beach. I was a council member for 8 years before that, starting in about 2009. Yeah, and then I got elected mayor 4 years ago. And then we have elected mayors in Redondo Beach. And then I just got reelected for another 4 years. So been doing this a while. So anyway, thanks for having me, though. I had never heard of you guys before. So it's really, really interesting. Anyway, so the fundamental question as you go through all this, I guess most of you are familiar with SB9 and some of the other bills that have been coming out of Sacramento on housing. But so it gets very complicated and people get in the weeds and it's wonky stuff often, but they always come back to this fundamental question. Who's better suited to set zoning and other land use regulations for your town? Sacramento, legislators in Sacramento don't live where you live and aren't directly elected by you, or your local agencies where the people who represent you, you directly elect, live where you live. I think the question ultimately, if you put that before the voters of California, you're going to get the second answer. Anyway, I've been going to Sacramento for working on these housing bills like 5 years, maybe. I guess it's kind of started for me with SB 35. It's a bill that's being used in the Bay Area a lot that people are none too happy about. Anyway, I learned of this kind of narrative that the state legislature had developed, and that is that it's the city's fault. The housing shortage, affordability crisis, however you want to put it, it's our fault. And we're in the way of getting these projects done. And they've really taken this position and kind of scapegoating us on what are much more complex problems that we were hoping to, collaborate with over the last few years. And we're kind of being blamed for it. So housing shortages caused by local regulations, simple supply and demand theory, just build more and your demand is going to meet price and equalize. Well, the fact is that's just not a natural law, like, water boils at 212 degrees. It's an economic theory and it works usually, but it breaks down with residential development, as we've seen really in the state and all over the world. San Francisco is the best example. It's the most densely populated city in the state, and it's also the most expensive. So density doesn't necessarily equate affordability. People live in cities for a lot of different reasons. Anyway, again, I'm speaking about this from our city perspective. The impacts are our problem. We're going to have to basically take care of everything, particularly public safety, police, fire, public works, water. I mean, everything that you would expect a city to take care of is still going to be responsible. People think, oh, well, then, they'll have more residential property taxes. Well, the fact is residential, I missed a slide here. Sorry, missing a slide, but I'll fill it in with words. Residential development doesn't pay for a city, right? We only get in LA an average of about 12% in LA County of property tax revenue back to the cities. So for instance, if somebody paid $750,000 for a house and they pay 1% and they pay 10 and the city gets back 10% of that, the city's only going to get $750 back to the city to fund all these things. And what's often confusing is people see residential real estate taxes revenue as the #1 revenue in a city. This isn't San Diego. I don't know what it is in San Diego, but most medium-sized and smaller cities, it is the #1 revenue, residential property taxes, but it's also the #1 cost driver. So, Redondo Beach, say, has about $100 million budget. We get about 35 million in property tax revenue, but what drives our costs is residential development. And those are, 70% of our budget. So there'll be 70 million just for public safety. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't know what cities, I suppose San Diego, but often it's very illustrative to even city councilmen to learn that residential development is not paying. Anyway, the other big thing that we're seeing with SB9 and SB10 and the other bills is they're really commoditizing residential development. And you're seeing this go on all over the world. And what they're getting with this upzoning, basically with no affordable component in it, which is really, really key, where they allow individual property owners to split their lot into two and then build two on each lot. And so what's going on all over the world really is this commoditization of residential real estate. You're seeing it in Barcelona, seeing it in Australia, you're seeing it on the East Coast, invitation homes. They're basically coming in and buying up neighborhoods and turning them into rentals. And there's no affordable component in these. So You're seeing people push back. First bullet point, there's a recent Wall Street Journal, recent article in our local paper. Bubble Watch investors are 51% of Southern California's home buying surge. Think about that. Investors are driving a lot of these prices up. And the bottom line, this goes back to what I was talking about, what's happening in Europe. This was a title of a New York Times article. As pandemic evictions rise, Spaniards declare war on Wall Street landlords. So they're pushing back because their neighborhoods are being gentrified and not housing for people. It turns out to be housing for investors or Wall Street. Anyway, SB9, SB10 passed. What now? A lot of cities are very concerned because, yeah, they just don't have the ability to meet the infrastructure needs and a lot of other things. And people don't necessarily want to, end single family zoning throughout the entire state. So what we decided was the best approach was to do a constitutional amendment. Because if you look in all these bills, there's always a line in there that says this is of state interest, not a community affair, which the reason it's in that is because it's referencing back to the Constitution where communities can't override state law. Well, if you amend the Constitution that does allow just zoning and land use at the local level, then, if the residents of California vote for it, then it shall be. And those sorts of controls will be done at the local level by people who live where you live. Anyway, it was a, an initiative we wrote up some time ago, and it's probably 2.5 years now. But as the clock started ticking down and all these housing bills started dropping and these groups got really, really worried, I worked with my local assembly member, Almer Tsuchi, who decided to take the bill or take the initiative and just make it a bill, which is what he did. And that became ACA7. And that was back in March. And so, yeah, I was kind of sitting there and, I told him, it's never going to pass. And he said, that's okay. It's something that you'll be able to point to and use to rally support, which worked out quite well. So sure enough, all these bills dropped in August. And that really what was ACA7 became our Neighborhood Voices Initiative. So now it's a citizen-led initiative. Now, what does it do? It amends Article 11 of the California Constitution, transfers power for zoning and land use from the state back to the local communities. It's Article 11 Constitution. There's exceptions for the Coastal Act, large infrastructure projects related to transportation, water, communications, but it does not affect fair housing laws, CEQAs, and it basically allows counties and cities to set their own standards. SB9, SB10 can be superseded by local zoning land use laws. So that's what it does in a nutshell. And it's this official name of the initiative, myself, Brand Wong Mendoza Land Use Initiative. We have 5 proponents. If you're elected official and you're a proponent, it has to be in the name of the title, which is why that's there. It's filed with the Attorney General on August 25th. We got title and summary back November 1st, so we now have until the end of April to gather over 1 million signatures. So we're well on our way and raise a lot of money to get that done. The proponents, we have 5. John Heath, he's a co-founder of United Homeowners Association in Los Angeles. Jovita Mendoza, council member, City of Brentwood up in the Bay Area. Dennis Richards, former Planning Commission, City and County of San Francisco. Peggy Wong's Mayor Yorba Linda, and myself, Mayor of Redondo Beach. Anyway, so a lot of state kind of ad hoc groups have been forming over all this. One is Livable California, who's somebody from Livables on this call. Is fantastic. And they've got quite a following, and United Neighbors. Also, a California Alliance for Locally Elected Officials, which is exactly what it is. It's a loosely formed group of local elected officials, been meeting for over 1.5 years. And then in Torrance, they have this California Communities for Local Control. And then, of course, United Homeowners in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of groups around that have been helping us. The signature gathering has begun. People are donating. I was thinking about what you guys could help. Just go to our website, ourneighborhoodvoices.com. There's a lot of information on their Q&A. Donate. Yeah, we're in. It's very much a grassroots effort, folks. It's there's no big tech or building industry association, thinking that zoning and land use should go back to the local level. We're doing volunteer signature gathering. People just go to our website. You can sign up to do that, or you can just endorse the initiative on our website. And I've been talking to a lot of local elected officials in other cities, and they're beginning to pass resolutions of support for the initiative. So that's very gratifying. In fact, California Contract Cities Association recently endorsed, and they're made up of 70 some cities in California. So anyway, that's it. Hopefully it wasn't too long or it was clear. Let me stop sharing and just open it up to questions. Looks like Laura left us.
No, I'm here.
Oh,
Put
there.
computers
An
up.
empty chair.
Do we have any hands up?
My hand's up.
Richard.
Richard?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It's always good to hear from what's happening in communities outside of our area under state law. Quick question. When you mentioned about power, I'm not sure if this is the right way to say that, but not power, but I don't know. Going back to local agencies, I have over 25 years experience in county government, enforcing different state laws. And one of them in particular is California Health and Safety Code. But what we have always been told over the past 25 years with municipal governments is that there's a state law and they can encode it into their municipal codes, but it has to be at least as stringent, and that's the terminology, at least as stringent as the state law. So in other words, you can't water down a state law if you're a local government. Is that kind of still in effect now? Because, you know, when it comes to housing, there are a lot of very important things in the state laws. And for example, occupation of buildings. You can only have so many people occupying a certain square footage of a building because of health factors. Mm-hmm. That's under state law. Now, is it going to be weakened if it all goes back to local municipalities?
Well, no, not that specific thing you speak of. This is just zoning and land use. This does not affect things like solar panels or any kind of, you know, required electrical hookups. Some of it is building code stuff you're talking about. But occupancy, I mean, the normal applicable laws apply, and that's in the initiative. So, you know, it could be occupancy, could be some other standard that, yes, and you can't set standards less stringent than the state, right? Kind of works the Fed to the state as well. You know, states can set more stringent regulations than the feds, and cities can set more stringent than the counties, and on and on. So that's kind of a standard principle. But yeah, no, the initiative is just zoning and land use. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Thank you.
You know, as an example, a city might be forced to do an upzoning for some reason, and they wouldn't have to do it anymore. Or they could do whatever they want. They can upzone it as much as they want. So it's really just bringing the planning and development back to the local level where it belongs.
Okay, let me give you an example, okay? Because I've lived in LA too. I love Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, and those areas. They're flat. El Cerrito and many other communities in San Diego are on slopes. So when you look at a parcel map, it looks like this one particular parcel has a lot of square footage, but when you actually go there on site or you look at a topo map, like half of it is a slope. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the concern that we have with those properties are on slopes is that they put ADUs on there. Where is that wastewater going to go? And can the current infrastructure handle that wastewater? For example, being pumped back up into the street, right? Being pumped back up into the sewer system in the street, which would add additional costs to these ADUs.
Yeah, well, sorry, I get distracted. Somebody was trying to call me. Tell me your concern again. I had a good thought.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I get distracted.
Yeah, not everything is sanitary.
I'm sorry. So what you're talking about ultimately is what is so unique about different communities. You started off talking about our community, it's kind of flat, and then you get hilly still. That's exactly why the state shouldn't be delving into zoning and on a town by town basis with these broad strokes coming from Sacramento. So I would never try to tell you guys what's the best zoning for your town or vice versa, or, but it's a good example of what I'm hearing from up and down the states, people with all these different challenges that are unique to their area, and they feel like they're not being heard, and they're not being heard. In fact, when this happens, there's not gonna be anybody locally that they can do anything. People are gonna come running to their council and the mayor and, say, hey man, it's ministerial. I know you know what ministerial is, having worked for the county. Yeah, just means the city has to do it. There'll be no hearing, nothing.
Can I interject here? I'm Lisa Hebner. I'm the mayor of Solana Beach. And I am also a proponent of the initiative, and I've worked with Bill for a number of years. I first met him at CALI, which is the California Alliance of Local Electeds, because I was concerned about the broad brush strokes that the state was taking on housing and not solving the problems that we saw and we wanted more affordable housing in my city. We wanted a lot of things that the state was sort of misdiagnosing and providing their idea of solutions, but it wasn't working out. So what has happened with our Neighborhood Voices initiative is that it is saying that all of your land use zoning goes back to the city, so that what you are dealing with with the slopes, et cetera, your city would be able to have a solution to that. And the state's overall law would no longer be the gospel on the whole thing. One of the things that I understand is going on in El Cerrito area, in District 9, in some areas, and those who are with Neighbors for Better San Diego, are the ADU laws that you have are extremely liberal, I guess is the word. There's a tremendous amount of density. And in fact, SB9, your concern is that SB9 in a way is moderating some of the land use policies that you're seeing coming out in San Diego. And so I think that's a really good question too. I think it's a unique question to San Diego, if SB9 is actually putting a lid on some of these issues that you're experiencing. My understanding of the initiative, and Bill, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that anybody who wants to keep SB9 or SB10 can do that. If whatever the state has passed that you like, feel free to keep it and feel free to make that part of your own code again. But for those of us who are struggling to meet our desires for more affordable housing, let alone our requirements for them, those solutions aren't helping because of the problems we're seeing with speculators, et cetera, coming in and buying and not making them affordable. In fact, quite the opposite. So I think in this group, there's some unique issues that we probably haven't encountered in other cities in the state. But I know that Newell had mentioned that, and I wanted to address that as well and bring that to Bill's attention too, because it is so unusual.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you, Lisa. That was kind of my point, that, everywhere is so different. It's, you talk to people in Cupertino and they're worried about, all this commercial that's going up, and they have a huge influx of people during the daytime and an exodus. And we have the exact opposite. You guys have hills, so it's very complicated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us that are very frustrated by San Diego's ADU policies, and we're seeing the same thing with real estate speculation. And we're really having a problem in the density in our single family residential neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Gustav and then Newell are on the speakers list, or they have their hands raised. So Gustav, you want to go ahead, please?
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you, Bill. I listened to you several times on Level, California, and you're incredibly informative. And I had a question about, RENA numbers. I know that, for those that aren't familiar, it's basically the state legislating housing stock, quotas and so forth. And what I'm curious about is, we just had our census completed, and what happens if your population didn't grow? I'm actually, as right now, I'm actually in Palm Springs. Their population did not grow in 2020. So why should they be held accountable to building more units if the population didn't increase? Do you know if there's any
Yeah,
Because that, that's driving a lot of the SB9, 10, logic and so forth.
Well, I would argue what's driving SB9 are the people, donating to the campaigns of the state legislatures that are saying yes to it. But to your point, what SB9 does really is just force a city to upzone. And going back to RENA, the way those numbers are chosen is very complicated. And the state sends down housing and community development, sends a huge number out to these different regions in Southern California area government, SCAG. And so then they get an allocation, and then at SCAG, they send it off to the COGs. And if you know what a COG is, it's a council of government. And so it works its way down in this weird branching, but it does get to the cities, right? And our COG got a certain number and they distributed it. We got a certain number, and I'm sure, San Diego or other got a certain number. So there's no link to, is there a population growth? There's really more, they kind of look more towards how successful have you been in the past? RENA's a black box, frankly. And so they always come to explain it, and you sit there and you're still scratching your head. So yeah, it may have nothing whatever to do with projected population growth. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. In fact, a lot of people can't figure out what it has to do with other than the state send them a number and they got to plug in.
Any possibility of that being modified or, deemed, and let me guess, there's tons of lawsuits.
Yeah, right.
On it.
So the city of Irvine, okay, this is a long time ago. I might have this wrong, but city of Irvine did sue HCD because I think they got 40,000 RENA numbers in Irvine. It was crazy. And so Irvine sued HCD and they lost. It was a well-known case. Everybody looks at it. It was probably 10 years ago. Again, I could have some of the details of this wrong, so don't hold me to it. But we recently entered a lawsuit with Orange County against HCD, which we lost. So the only way to challenge it is through the courts, and it's losing. So I just don't see it changing, to be honest with you. That's the process. And yeah, and believe me, it frustrates a lot of people.
Thank you.
But what this might change, what the initiative might change, Bill, is that the state, the RENA numbers, they can't tell us how to zone for it, right?
Right.
Yeah, they won't be able to, they won't say, okay, you have to zone X number of dwelling units per acre in order to meet your RENA numbers. But we would be required still to meet our RENA numbers, or zone for them at least, on our own, without the state telling us.
You want to, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Something that people don't understand about RENA, it doesn't mean there's going to be affordable housing there. People think that RENA requires affordable housing. I will give you a great example. It happened in Redondo Beach. We had this old mall. Well, it's an old mall. It's the Galleria. It's South Bay Galleria. And they're going to redevelop it. And it was zoned for 1,000 residential units. And that's where we used a lot of our RENA allocations. Oh, we're going to build, we can build 1,000 units at the mall. Well, guess what? They came in, they did a redevelopment. They're only going to build 300. They're only going to build 300. And the only reason any of it is affordable is because we conditioned it on approval. So when we went to approve it, we're not going to approve it unless you give us 20% affordable. That was one of the conditions. We negotiated a bunch of stuff and they went for it. So the state had nothing to do with that. In fact, they didn't have to build any residential. So they could have done 0. So they only built 300, which means we had to go back to HCD and recalculate our rates to meet our numbers, right? Because they only got 300, but they could have done 0. And so RENA doesn't require anything. The way we get affordable housing is at the local level like that, or do an inclusionary zoning for affordable housing. Sorry, long answer, but Lisa's exactly right. Of course she's right.
Great. So we've got Newell, then Jeff, then Denise, and then Oak Park, which I assume is Richard.
Thank you very much for coming, mayors. I have one question. I have heard of some initiatives under other names. Is this the only initiative? And have you worked with the other initiatives that are working kind of to the same direction? And hopefully there's just one by the time the election comes.
Yeah, right, Noel. I think we changed the name twice. So
that might be it.
Yeah, we're grassroots. We got some pros on now, but we changed the name a couple of times. I don't even remember what it was. I don't want to
So you are the only one.
But we are the only initiative related to
Okay, good.
so, but yeah, thank you for paying attention early on, because
Oh, I've been supporting it when I first heard about it. That's the thing that needs to be done.
yeah, well,
Thank you very much.
we got to get on the ballot before we have a campaign. So anybody
Yep.
wants to help out, go to our website.
Okay, great. Jeff?
Hey, Bill, good to see you again. We've been obviously following you for some time. A couple of questions. One, just sort of as we anticipate what might happen with this initiative, particularly if it passes, would you recommend that as states or cities go through their SB9 implementations, that we should be adding trigger clauses that if the initiative passes, our SB9 implementations immediately become voided, obviously with certain maintenance, or is that too complicated?
Yeah, it's kind of hypothetical, I think, Jeff. Hey, if this passes, then this is the law. I think, I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but individual cities can absolutely implement certain things before January 1st when it takes effect that they need to. Otherwise, they'll be exposed to more than they thought. But yeah, just to answer your question, I don't think that would, yeah, that's too hypothetical. But you should be doing certain SB9 regulations at your local city. A lot of cities are, but I think a lot of cities are going to miss it because it's last minute. It's pretty wonky. It's the end of the year. So
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, so San Diego is doing its SB9 implementation right now. Obviously, it's doing it because of SB9, not because we did a community plan update or some other mechanism to say that we wanted to do this upzoning. So the question would be, if the only reason the law is in place is because SB9 is compelling it, if the initiative overrides SB9 and makes it no longer in effect, would it then make sense to have anticipated that question and made it so that immediately upon the initiative repealing SB9, then the city's implementation of SB9 would similarly be repealed?
yeah, it's a very interesting thought, because we're doing that. A lot of cities, as I said, are implementing things related to SB9. And so now you got me thinking, well, what if it does pass? I hadn't thought about this. Then you have these regulations on there. It's like, hey, whoa, wait a minute. SB9 didn't even pass. They just made us do certain things. So thank you. That's interesting, but we're getting ready to do it anyway. But
the other question really quick is,
Sure.
is there any outreach to political candidates, particularly sort of non-incumbents who haven't already sort of hitched themselves to this wagon, to get them to try and support the initiative, and by extension, the whole sense of getting Sacramento out of land use development and having the cities figure out how to do it themselves? I think what the mayor from Solana Beach said is exactly right. It's one thing to say, here's numbers that you're accountable for, but cities, and it drives us crazy every time we look at a TPA map. We know that Sacramento has no idea how to do local land use ordinances, but I understand that there's a reasonable expectation that people are providing housing, and including affordable housing, and sort of backing up and letting people figure out how to do it is the right way to go.
yeah, you got a lot in there, Jeff, for sure. But originally, outreach, we're doing an outreach to every channel we possibly can. This is why I'm coming on this. This is why other proponents, people like Lisa, are going on Zooms. We've got a very effective website up. We've got a good Facebook page. We've got, consultants and campaign fundraisers. So we got all that cranked up and getting as much outreach as we can. So hopefully you guys will visit our website. But yeah, I mean, land use is everything you mentioned is such a complex issue, and every city is different. And Sacramento thinking they're just going to take some broad brush across the entire state because they think we're responsible for housing shortage. I mean, it's just, honestly, it's crazy. Hey, not everything coming out of Sacramento is bad. Don't get me wrong, but this is. And so they do some good things and great things, but this is a big mistake, and especially with no affordable housing in it whatsoever. I mean, they could at least, right? Oh, you're going to split your lot 4 ways. Well, then at least 25% of it has to be affordable. They didn't even do that. So it's a giveaway to the investors, frankly.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill or Lisa, do you want to put the Livable California website in the chat just so people can connect to it? I put our neighbor's website up there. But if you want to put yours up, please do. Denise Padilla, you're next on the to ask a question.
Thank you very much. Well, basic for me is, do you have issues with the ADUs where no parking is allowed? I don't understand that, number one. And number two, I've been to several Zoom meetings throughout the city, including Barrio Logan. What is affordable housing for certain neighborhoods? No one can define what is affordable for someone who only makes $1,400 a month.
Well, it's defined very specifically in different counties. So the state has a classification of very, very low income, moderate, and even above moderate. And they balance that off of the average income of the resident in that county. So in Los Angeles, it's like 60% or something, and then you can't $60,000 or $70,000. And then you can't spend more than 30% on your housing needs. So they do this big complicated calculation, and then you see where it falls in, where it would rank. So for instance, in Redondo Beach, we gave the developer a choice. You're going to provide a 20% low income affordable, or 10% very low income affordable. So they had a choice. And they took the 20% low income. So we're going to get 20% low income. But those are very specific numbers. And they have to be, well, they're not in perpetuity, even though I wish they would. So, but they track them all throughout the year. So it's done very, very carefully. But yes, when you hear the word affordable, you absolutely say, what are you talking about affordable? Because moderate affordable, or even above moderate, is market rate. Yet they can still call it affordable because, it's market rate or it's moderate. So it's very tricky. It's very tricky. That's why I don't just say affordable. I mean low income affordable.
Exactly. So how do you fight that?
Well, there's nothing to fight. I mean, they have it very specific. What is low income? When you hear when a project comes forward, they go, oh, we're going to have affordable housing. Really? What level of affordability are you going to have? Because you can look it up. You could probably Google San Diego low income affordable costs or whatever. And so hold their feet to the fire when the project's before you and say, hey, what are you talking about affordable? Because we had a project going, it was moderate rate. Well, guess what? It's just charging market rate. It's not affordable. It's just some RENA thing that confuses people more.
So then you oppose, so we would have to oppose that.
It's too in the weeds, honestly. It's not something Denise should like run out and, overturn that specifics of one little thing. You do our initiative does, and you bring local zoning and land use back to the local level. That's what you do. I mean, if it's up in Sacramento, you don't have any hope of anything, right? Wait, how are you going to, you just don't. And they're just piling on. Somebody called it carpet bombing. They've been carpet bombing us with housing bills for 5 years.
And just FYI, the average area median income in San Diego is $95,100 a year. And there's a variety in it. A moderate, which is a category in the RENA, is 120% of that per year. And then anyway, it's all laid out, but we have to, that's what the RENA numbers are broken down into, those different categories. And then, as Bill was saying, then it's up to us on the local level to negotiate with the developers, what they're going to do. Although with this by right stuff, they've taken away our ability to negotiate. They just want to do what they're going to do.
That's right.
Right. And so I think it's really important, and I want to thank both of you for coming. And Susan is on the speakers list now, but I just wanted to say thank you and say that even though it won't help us here in San Diego, I think it's fundamentally important to get this initiative on the ballot to recall SB9. And I want people to know that I'm actually in possession of petitions and I'm collecting signatures. So if anybody wants to sign this petition to get, local control of housing back at the local level and out of Sacramento, stay on the meeting afterwards and talk to me or reach out to me some other way. I'm happy to get a petition to you. I'll drive it to your house to get your signature. So Susan, go ahead, please.
Thank you,
Oh,
Laura.
You'll have to excuse me for coming in late, but I wanted to comment on the planning commission meeting here we had this morning. Lasted until 1:30. I was astounded at the reactions first of the first 50 people that, gave their thoughts on it. And then even more astounded and astonished about the commission members' reactions. I kind of had a feeling that oh, by the way, I'm from El Cerrito and I live 2 blocks from San Diego State. I was astonished at the council people's summation. They went from very conservative that it's all supply and demand. That's all, it's just economics. And when the supply catches up, no problem, no problems at all. And that as the crow flies, that's a good measure to walk to your bus stop. And if you're handicapped and mobility, well, you should use an electric vehicle or electric scooter and for the handicapped, there's special, they went on and on with these ridiculous answers. And even one of them used the word NIMBY. And I just thought, what? You buy land. Oh yeah, and another man was extremely,
Susan, let me interrupt you. When
Yeah.
they say NIMBY, say, no, it's WIMBY. NIMBY is not in my backyard. WIMBY is Wall Street in my backyard. That's exactly what's
Yeah.
going on.
Exactly.
I coined that
Exactly.
phrase from our former supervisor, Zev Yaroslavsky, just out of the blue. He goes, this isn't NIMBY.
It's really what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
But not one of the 50 mentioned that we should share our backyard, that we're greedy, white rich people that won't, have no consideration for anybody else. And what they finally, and again, it was confusing their conversation at the end, the council members, what they wanted to vote on. And they did pass something unanimously. And I think it was to agree to 1 or 2 trees must be planted every backyard for an ADU. And that for sure, except for what the state doesn't allow for fees, development fees, which they said was 758, square feet per ADU, that they're make sure they get their development fees in. And I thought, well, that's really wonderful. And did anybody else listen to that and get anything more out of it than that? And they're going to now pass this to the council. The city for voting. Is this the end of it?
I think you're really smart supporting this initiative, because when this passes, when we get it on the ballot and it passes, it will send a message that this isn't really the right response. These sorts of answers that you heard today. What we need to do is collaborate, work together, and come up with ways that we can actually make sure that families can move into our neighborhoods and not investors.
Mm-hmm. I have one more comment. I drove home tonight after dark from grocery shopping. And of course, it's winter break for the students up there. And the parking is like 3/4 gone. And I thought, well, at least when San Diego State is not in session, we have some relief in our neighborhood from the mini dorms, from the teenagers that go back home. But I feel really sorry for people that are going to have it all the time and no relief in between. So yes, I do support that. I'm glad to hear about that initiative. We'll do something. And by the way, Mayor, I sent money right at the very beginning to help with the start of that initiative.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's group. It really is. It's very heartwarming.
Jeff, is your hand back up?
I just wanted to make one other quick comment, because a lot of times we think that, for example, if San Diego has passed things and they've done things more egregiously than Sacramento dictates on ADUs, they actually queued pretty close to SB9, to be honest. I don't know if that was because of our pressure, but we're a lot better on that one. But the excuse they always use for these upzoning ordinances is that they're just conforming to state law. So they're really able to use this fig leaf over the things that they're doing. And the telling part is going to be when cities try and pass SB 10, for example, because SB 10 isn't required by state law, and you're going to find a decidedly different amount of will for people and appetite for people to pass SB 10. And that just tells you that they don't have the vision or the courage to stand in front of voters and say, we have a comprehensive plan for how we're going to be housing the residents of our city, but also, creating livable spaces, that are not just housing. I mean, we have jobs, we shop, we entertain. We don't just, sit in our cubicle at home and then go to our cubicle at work. I mean, all this planning is just bad because it's cookie cutter. I don't know why. If we want to accomplish these things, that's why we do community plan updates. And that should be the basis of planning. And that's how we have our input. That's how people have their input, and we come to some agreement. So again, San Diego wouldn't have done what it did if it hadn't been for the ability to say, oh, we're just conforming to state law, and they zipped it through the council that way.
Well, Jeff, you hit the nail on the head. And I've been seeing this up and down the state. I mean, I've been talking to people for 5 years. I can't even believe how long it's been. And there are some council members. I'm sitting in a group with a bunch of council members and mayors talking to some supervisor or a state official, more likely. And they've literally stood up and said, hey, we need cover here at the local level. I mean, we can't get these upzonings done unless the state makes us do it. Like my mouth dropped to the floor. Are you kidding me? Did you run on that platform? Of course not. And so they're basically, I call it asking for cover for their land use policies, because if they said what the real policies were, they wouldn't have got elected if they try to run it. But it's easy. Oh, the state made us do it. Exactly. Hopefully I made my point. I didn't mean to cut it off, but that's what they do. They just, and you're exactly right.
That's exactly right.
Some, not all. Most elected officials I talk to absolutely think that zoning and land use should be at the local level. But boy, have I heard that. And you hear it, supervisor level, council, mayor, whatever.
Great. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions for you. So, oh, Richard, I'm sorry, Richard. Go ahead, please.
No, very quick, Mayor Brand. So when, and I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, I'm just curious. You made a comment about other jurisdictions saying, well, we have to pass it because it's a state law, right? Okay. Are they saying it because they expect to get funding from the state for it? Or
no,
this is all unfunded mandate, right?
Look, I can't speak for other people, but I think a lot of people share kind of these, what I would call in our town, we call them overdevelopment policies, that they don't always run on that platform, right? They don't always say, hey, I'm for that mall down there. I'm running because I'm going to push that mall down on the waterfront. Or we need more, we got to split up all these, 2 on a lot, 3 on a lot, single. We got to break that up into like 10, right? We got to get rid of parking standards. Why would we have parking? Why do we need minimum parking standards? We're all going to ride scooters, right, Susan? And we'll figure something, on the bus or, hey, a skateboard, whatever, and so that's what's happening, right? These bills, SB9 won't even let you set a minimum parking requirement if you're within a half a mile of a bus stop. No minimum parking requirement, half a mile. I mean, right? I mean, how many, anyway. So that's really ultimate problem, and you're exactly right. And it's very, you guys we could talk about all these different situations, everything here, there, here, like we're doing. But I got to tell you, it just belongs back at the local level. That's why it's my first slide. Simple question: where should zoning and land use decisions be made? In Sacramento for your town, or at your local level? So as much as you fight it out at the local level.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for the long answer, but.
No, that's great. We greatly appreciate you guys, both of you coming tonight to chat with our community about this. And for community members, look in the chat. You've got a number of different websites that will give you more information about the petition and about the groups that are supporting and putting forth these petitions and all the work that's being done to assure local control of land use and housing policies. So look at that. And if you decide you want to sign the petition, I've left my information in the chat. You can email me or call me. I'm available. So if there are no other questions.
Let me just say thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
Here and
thank you,
now.
everybody.
There's a lot of volunteers working very hard, like myself, and we're not getting paid. So we're really counting on the volunteer spirit around the state to get this done. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah, if you have any advice for folks of what they can do, please offer it.
Oh, well, just go on the website. First thing, it's easy for anybody to go on the website, just endorse, and that really, we're building our numbers. But, people get more involved, donate. We're definitely going to have to hire signature gatherers. So we're close. And so, yeah, we're going to need money and we're going to need volunteer signature gatherers. So those are the main things. Our neighborhoodvoices.com. Thanks, you guys.
Okay. And then that will end it for the El Cerrito Community Council agenda as well. So I would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I appreciate your time. And if there's nothing else, we can all say goodnight.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Marna?
Thank you.
Yes, I'll stay on until
Thank
everybody's
you.
done. I'm
Good
going to stop the recording though.
Yeah. Happy holidays. Be safe.
Okay, bye.